Good morning or good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Kayla Slobodnik. I am the ADB Liaison Officer at the Embassy of Canada to the Philippines. So welcome, whether it's your morning or your evening or your very early morning. Thank you for taking the time out to join us. Some quick reminders before we get started today. This session is being recorded, and a copy of this recording will be provided to you since you registered, hopefully, and provided your email address. You will also receive presentations and information following the event, hopefully to help you in your journey in working with the ADB. I will ask that you mute yourselves during the presentations today, but there will be an opportunity to hear from you during the Q&A portion. So during that time, you can send your questions in either to the chat in advance so you don't forget them, or you can send them to the chat during the live Q&A, or you can raise your hand and I will call on you and you can speak yourself. And for those of you who are familiar with the Philippines, sometimes internet access can be difficult. So if that's the case, please just bear with us. If you lose one of us, lose one of the presentations or presenters, it will come back online. It's just the fun of living and working here. So thank you all for joining us. This is the fourth iteration of these ADB BOS presentations hosted by the Embassy of Canada to the Philippines. To get things started today with our program, we have Dr. Donald Bobiash. I just want to confirm that he is indeed on the line. I don't know. I do see Ms. Tet here. And if he's not, we can come back to him. But today's program is really to help you and to help situate you and help you learn about not only the procurement opportunities, but navigating those opportunities with the bank. I will just check with Ms. Tet. Do we have Dr. Bobiash here? Yes? No? There we go.
Hang on.
There we go. Dr. Bobiash, thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who have had the pleasure of meeting Donald Bobiash, our Executive Director for the ICE constituency at the bank, he is a wealth of information. He has previously served as the Executive Director for Canada at the Inter-American Development Bank, and previously served as Assistant Deputy Minister for the Asia Pacific region at Global Affairs Canada. So he is very much familiar with the region, and I certainly appreciate you, Dr. Bobiash, taking the time to be with us this evening. So I will hand it over to you and let you deliver your remarks. Oh, you are just on mute. Sorry.
There we are. There we
go.
Okay. Now, see me. For some reason, I'm blocked out here.
We can see you and we can hear you.
You can see me. Okay, then I will carry on. Thank you very much, Kayla, for your kind introduction, and good morning and bonjour to all my fellow Canadians back at home. Welcome to today's event focused on procurement with the Asian Development Bank. Je suis ravi de vous accueillir aujourd'hui. I'm delighted to see such a strong turnout of companies and stakeholders this morning. As representatives of the Canadian business community, your presence here underscores your commitment to expanding your horizons and engaging with international development projects. The ADB, as a leading financial institution dedicated to fostering economic growth and reducing poverty in the Asia-Pacific region, offers many exciting opportunities to Canadian firms. Today, we have the unique opportunity to delve into the nuances of procurement successfully within the ADB. Understanding the ADB's procurement processes, policies, and requirements is paramount for Canadian companies to successfully bid on ADB-funded projects. Throughout this morning's event, you will hear from experts who will provide practical advice to help you navigate the intricacies of successful ADB procurement. Whether you are a seasoned player in international development or exploring opportunities for the first time, I am confident that you will find this event to be informative and enlightening. For its part, the Asian Development Bank is dedicating financial resources to support developing member countries in improving their energy solutions and infrastructure, introducing adaptive technologies to address hunger and food security, accelerating progress in gender equality, and strengthening good governance and policy making. Now, let me put the bank and its activities into a larger perspective. Simply put, the ADB is successfully meeting the challenge of change. The bank is going through a period of change and transformation, as is the region it serves. These are exciting times for the bank as it attempts to meet the rising expectations of its member countries in a rapidly evolving international and regional context. Canada has a strong interest in leveraging its interests in the bank and supporting its leadership role in the region. The Asian regional context is one of success. All development institutions operate in a specific regional context. In the case of the ADB, the Asian continent is a development success story, home to approximately half the world's population and some of the largest and most successful economies. The region is compressing into decades, changes that took generations in other continents. Throughout the continent, the last few decades have seen rapid economic growth, the emergence of a new middle class, which is a driver of the global economy, and dramatically improved living standards. Hundreds of millions have been lifted out of poverty, and most Asian countries have witnessed tremendous progress across a range of basic development indicators: health, education, and income. The region has experienced dramatic social change, especially urbanization and modernization. This has resulted in an historic building boom throughout many Asian cities, many of which are among the largest cities in the world. In both Manila and Jakarta and their respective suburbs, the total population exceeds 40 million, the entire population of Canada in one urban area. Across the road from the ADB headquarters, which is my office located, one sees Asia's construction boom. There are not one, but 5 new high-rise office and apartment buildings going up on a single street. The essential point is that many Asian economies have gotten development right, and this provides many opportunities for Canadian companies. How is the bank doing? The bank is doing well, and in many areas is ahead of the curve. Its current overall portfolio of lending is $110 billion. It has almost doubled its lending over the last decade, from approximately $11.8 billion per annum in 2012 to approximately $20 billion last year. More importantly, with its recently adopted new capital adequacy framework, the bank has unlocked an estimated $100 billion in new lending headroom over the next 10 years. Before we get started today, I would like to share my thoughts and observations on how Canadian companies can best procure IFI opportunities. IFIs are good business partners and present significant business opportunities. They are constantly looking for new suppliers, new technologies, and more efficient and effective ways to address the problems of their region. IFI opportunities are, however, very competitive, and it is essential that you learn about IFI procurement processes, priority sectors, and project pipelines, and invest in building relationships with IFI sectors and project teams at both the headquarters and country levels. Companies are highly encouraged to leverage the support and services of the IFI liaison offices, or what we call OLIFI teams, within key Canadian embassies in the region for coaching and assistance. These offices represent one of the biggest competitive advantages that Canadian companies have, providing customized support and context. Success with IFI procurement, like with so many other business activities, requires investment of time and resources, a long-term commitment, and a bit of patience. The reward often makes it worthwhile, as the experience you gain with one IFI or your success with one IFI project will benefit your pursuing of other opportunities. In closing, I would like to congratulate the organizers of this event for what I expect will be a very practical and useful experience for all participants. Nous avons avec nous aujourd'hui Vijay Akasan and Julian Dopsy. Thank you for your time and support in staging this event. I'd like to thank you all again for your participation today, and I expect it will be a very practical experience for all. Les présentations d'aujourd'hui et les questions-réponses se feront en anglais afin d'accommoder nos intervenants. Please note that the presentations today and Q&A will be done in English in order to accommodate those speakers. Now I will hand it over to Kayla. Thanks and good luck.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bobiash. We appreciate your time and your consistent support of Canadian companies looking to work with the bank. Now I will hand it over to Vijay Akasam, Principal Portfolio Management Specialist, to present on the Southeast Asia portfolio and pipeline projects. Vijay, over to you. I know Vijay is here. I just saw him. Perhaps he just needs a minute. This might be some of the fun internet issues that we do get to have here in Manila. Vijay, can you hear me?
Kayla, sorry, it's me. He says he can't unmute. Maybe you can try manually unmuting him himself.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
And he says he can't start his video either, so he mustn't be a co-host.
I can't just unmute him. He can share his screen though, so I can see that. Apologies, folks. Vijay, can you hear me? Unfortunately, Vijay, are you able to rename yourself from Julian to you? While Vijay perhaps fixes his tech situation, Julian, maybe I ask that you would go first, and we can get Vijay situated, and he can present thereafter.
Okay, sure, Kayla, that's fine.
Perfect.
Let me just get myself
no problem.
tuned up there.
To let you know, we do have Julia Dachi, Principal Procurement Specialist and Deputy Head of the Consulting Services Unit. He will be presenting on the ADB procurement system and doing business with the ADB. So Julian, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Kayla. Let me just share my screen for everybody. Good morning to everybody. Nice to see you all here. Bear with me a moment. I think I want to share this screen. Kayla, can you tell me if you see that now?
I do. All good.
Perfect. Okay, and I'll try to monitor the chat as well if need be. If you can, you're welcome to put your questions in the chat in the meantime. So yeah, my name is Julian Dotsey. Again, good morning to all of you from Canada. I'm here in Manila, but a fellow Canadian working in the bank from Vancouver. So it's evening here in Manila, and I'm the deputy head of the Consulting Services Unit in ADB. I've been with the bank for about 7 years, and I've been doing these types of outreach sessions with consultants and contractors and firms and individuals like yourselves for about 6 years. So hope I'll be able to field all of your questions about the bank. We're doing business with the bank and how best to score some of our opportunities and and come to work in this dynamic region of the Asia Pacific if you're not already working here. So my presentation, I believe I've been allocated about 45 minutes, right, Kayla? 30 minutes? I forget now, 45.
You got
So that
45
will
minutes.
take me to 9 p.m. here, which is whatever now time it is there. I guess there's different time zones, but my overview, I'll try and wrap it up a little bit more quickly than that, but I do want to give you some overview of our procurement rules, but also take you through our website and give you a bit of a hands-on demo of where you can start looking for opportunities, identifying ADB's pipeline, and then giving guys like VJ a call, because I can see him on the call now. Good, he's got his video up. So hi, VJ. You know, you'll hear from him in a bit, and he's the front line of our operations teams, particularly in our Southeast Asia department. And one of the key lessons I'm going to be teaching you in this session today is, of course, procurement people like me sign contracts and set rules and make sure things are done fairly. But you really need to, understand and get in with the operations teams in our regional departments and in our operational departments more generally to learn about the upcoming opportunities in their sector and their region, and to understand where they're coming from, what their priorities are, in order to have yourself ready for these opportunities, so that when someone like me puts a request for proposal out on the website formally, you've already got a team together, you're already ready to go. Okay, so that's sort of lesson number one of our discussion today. But let me start with a bit about ADB's operations, in case you don't know too much about us yet. If you're an old hand to this, bear with me for a few minutes. You've probably heard some of this before, but for those new to the bank and to MDBs or IFIs more generally, ADB, particularly one of the Bretton Woods institutions, was founded in 1966. Our headquarters is in Manila, here in the Philippines, and we have 68 members, 49 regional and 19 non-regional, with 41 of those actively borrowing from the bank. Of course, as our name suggests, we are a bank, which means we provide loans, but also grants and other types of financial instruments, such as equity and guarantees, to both sovereign, which is a fancy word that is otherwise means government, and non-sovereign, which is another fancy word which means not government, such as private sector companies, around the region in the support of our mission, which is a sustainable, inclusive, and resilient Asia-Pacific region free of poverty. Okay, so we obviously have a development focus in the investments that we make with our clients. We provide concessional interest rates to them, and of course, work with them to ensure that various important social and environmental objectives are met through these projects that we take forward. Okay, as you can expect, based on sort of population in the region, our largest borrowers tend to be the larger members of the bank. So in 2022, those included India, Philippines, Uzbekistan, PR China, and Bangladesh. But this varies up and down. Indonesia is often up there as well. Pakistan was up there until recently with some of their debt crisis. So, it does vary in time. But as Edie Bobiash alluded to in his opening remarks, the Asia Pacific region is really a very dynamic region. A lot happening here, in a lot of different ways to get involved. If you're interested in the Pacific, or if you're interested in Central Asia or South Asia, these are all, completely different worlds of their own. And so, I feel that we have a very exciting portfolio of regions and of members and of work that we're doing in ADB. Our current corporate strategy is called Strategy 2030, and sets our broad focal areas for the bank that we aim to work on when it comes to what projects we take forward. Although obviously we do take projects forward on a demand-led basis in consultation with our clients as well. and where we try and steer them towards these priorities, such as tackling climate change, such as accelerating progress in gender equality and the like. We are recently labeling ourselves Asia Pacific's climate bank, so we're taking climate change very seriously these days. All of our projects have to be aligned with the Paris Agreement, and this has become now a central tenet of our lending and grant policies. Okay, much the same as now many of our other long-established safeguard policies on resettlement, on environmental impact, and the like. Our active portfolio is quite large, has been growing, is stabilized in the last couple of years. It shot up during COVID because we had a lot of COVID-related lending. Some of that lending now has obviously tapered down with the return to normalcy to a certain extent after the peak of the COVID pandemic. But as Edie Bobiash did allude to in his remarks, we recently did some creative work on our balance sheet with the support of our board of directors that will allow the bank to soon be starting to unlock an additional 100 billion of lending headroom, because as a development bank, we've historically been tied to the obligation to maintain effectively a AAA credit rating in the financial markets. And so we haven't necessarily been able to take on all the risky loans that some of our clients would like us to take on. But with this capital management reform, which you can read about in this link attached there if you're interested, we're taking a bit more of a risk-seeking approach and able to make a few tweaks to our operating model to enable these additional lending headroom. So do expect to see this active portfolio surge ahead in the coming years as well. And of course, what does more money on the table mean? Well, practically it means more opportunities, more contracts, because much of this, not all of this money, but much of this money will go out through sovereign procurement or the classic goods and works and services contracts that you are probably tuning in to learn more about today. Some of it will go out separately. Some of it will go out, for example, as budget support or core funds provided to governments. Some of it will go out as direct equity or guarantees to non-sovereign or private companies. For example, a local agricultural industry in Uzbekistan or something. So, some of these funds won't be available, but much of them, the majority of them, will be. So I think that's what makes our recent reforms exciting as well, because it means many more opportunities coming down the pipeline for you. In 2022, our sovereign portfolio broke down a bit like this. This is if you're interested in some of the details in terms of what we're funding, you can read more about that in the link attached. But needless to say, most of it still is loans, interest-bearing loans. We give grants to some of our lowest income or least developed members, such as Afghanistan and some of the Pacific Island states as well. Okay. By sector, this is always of interest, as I've sometimes give the anecdote. I've been doing these presentations and using this particular slide for about 5 or 6 years, and I update it every year. And interestingly, you would think perhaps that what the bank funds is relatively static, but actually, this sector composition has changed quite dramatically since I first made this slide 5 or 6 years ago. We used to be quite heavy on energy, for example, and on transport. Now you can see quite an uptick in some of the social sectors. In particular, health has really moved up. Of course, much of that is related to COVID-19 lending, but also we've had a bit of growth in agriculture. We've had some growth in urban services, and public sector management and education are growing share of the portfolio as well. So those used to be down around 1 or 2%. Now they're up to about 4% each. Okay. Now, that's not to say, ADB is not funding energy anymore. We certainly are. We're certainly still funding transport and other hard infrastructure, but many of our clients becoming more sophisticated, becoming more developed, are becoming better capable at servicing some of their core infrastructure needs, and are turning to the development banks for some more sophisticated support in some of the harder to crack sectors, or some of the harder to advance sectors, such as education policy, or such as public health care, or these sorts of things. So it's interesting, and I think it's an exciting time, because if you do work in some of these other social sectors, there are certainly more opportunities growing for you there, but still a steady pipeline of opportunities in some of the core infrastructure sectors as well. Okay. By region, roughly broken down as such. You can see the portfolio composition there. I would, of course, say that it's not only size that matters, because there are certainly a number of very interesting and challenging, complex opportunities going on, for example, in the Pacific. Simply, the countries are smaller, the projects therefore are smaller, but the opportunities are no less interesting and exciting. Okay. So, I think use this as one metric, but not necessarily the only metric. Let's move on to talk a bit about what Edie Bobiash mentioned in his opening remarks about why work with ADB. I think if you're looking for a pipe or a gateway into the Asia Pacific region, development banks and international organizations are a good place to start. We offer assured financing. You can be assured that we have strong complaints mechanisms in place that ensure fair and transparent processes. We tend not to, we tend to honor our contracts. We are obviously subject to international law, so you can trust that we will be a fair dealing partner. And as I mentioned, our operations are set to expand rapidly in the years ahead. And we work on, we have a positive mission. We have a a development focused mission, so you can feel good about the work that you do with us. So, I think those are all good. And if you're already established in the Asia Pacific region, then of course, this is another way to build your portfolio, either as a prime contractor or as a sub-consultant in some very interesting and dynamic projects, some of which you'll hear about from Vijay in a few minutes. So as I've mentioned, we run the gamut here in terms of what kinds of opportunities are on the table for you, whether that's supply of goods, different types of works, turnkey, design, build, even tunneling, sometimes airports, these kinds of big types of plant, lots and lots of consulting services contracts, also what we call non-consulting services or more standard issue types of ready-made services. Any of these sorts of things, ADB and its borrowers are procuring on a regular basis. So of course, the trick is to identify your niche and go, and zero in on those particular areas and regions where you have your competitive advantage and compete for those, because obviously you can't go for all of this stuff, but you can certainly find something for everybody in this sort of buffet of options. In 2022, in terms of, again, sovereign procurement, lending to our government clients, that then ended up as going out as procurement contracts through the procurement department. You can see about 9.5 billion. So that's your sort of typical average annual procurement for the bank. About 2 billion of that going out as goods, 6 billion as works, 500-ish million as consulting services, and another 900 million of sort of other those non-consulting services or other types of IT products or goods or this sorts of thing. So obviously by volume, works would take up the majority, but that's to be expected. Obviously, $100 million bridge is inherently more expensive than $1 million pre-feasibility study. But that's not to say that I mean, that feasibility study is critical to get the bridge built. Without the feasibility study, we have no bridge, right? So everything has its place, everything has its role, and everything is important. So whether you are supplying those goods, works, services, there's a place for you, and there's an opportunity for you. Okay. This just shows how you can come in our project cycle. So our typical project cycle is such that, you know, every few years we sit down with the sort of central ministries of our member states and say, okay, what would you like ADB to work with you on in the next 5 years? And they'll say, well, we really would like your support on building this bus rapid transit system. We'd really like your support in strengthening our hospitals. So that becomes what's called our country partnership strategy. And out of that comes the projects, the individual projects that we would take forward in that period. So, you know, building hospital number 6 in province X, building bus rapid transit system for city Y, you know, this sort of thing. That would be a discrete project. Maybe the bus rapid transit system is conceptualized as a $50 million project. They're going to procure 100 buses. They're going to, you know, re-engineer the streets for the bus lanes, install new traffic lights, undertake, you know, some community outreach and training and this sort of thing. So that would be your discrete project, right? So through the concept phase and the preparation phase, and even at the country partnership phase, consultants usually come in to help us put these ideas together, put the feasibility studies together, help us then put the project package together for approval, both by the government and by our own board of directors, you know, to approve the loan or the grant to the government. All of that needs to be suitably prepared, the project management plan, the various attached project management documents, such as, you know, risk management frameworks, safeguards, studies, environmental impact assessment, all these sorts of things have to be prepared. The project is then approved, implementation begins, procurement of, you know, the civil works and the goods and the implementation consultants begin. And that's, again, when you can come in, when you can feed in as usually a consultant or a supplier or contractor of goods and works to really contribute to that, for example, bus rapid transit system. So at preparation stage, concept stage, you can come in with your ideas, with your feasibility studies, your due diligence. At implementation stage, you're coming in to say, I've got buses to sell you, or I've got traffic lights to sell you, or I'm the consultant that will make sure the firm that's selling you the buses delivers them on time to the right place, okay? And then at the end, of course, when it's all said and done and the project is delivered, we still need consultants to evaluate the success of the project, to wrap up all the claims and any outstanding disputes and these sorts of things, and, you know, wrap it all up. So that's how you can feed in throughout the project cycle. Now, in terms of procurement ranking over the last few years, generally some of our larger borrowing members tend to do quite well in the goods and works area. The developed members tend to do a bit less well, where you tend to contribute more in terms of intellectual services. This is often down to pricing more than anything, but I'll talk a little bit later about how ADB is increasingly moving towards, you know, both a quality and cost assessment when it comes to procurement of goods and works. So I do think there's more opportunity for suppliers with, you know, higher value add to come in and win more of our contracts as well. But for now, you know, as you can see, India, PRC Bangladesh tend to be top winners in goods. In works, PRC, Republic of Korea, India as well tend to be favoring well. Pakistani firms as well. But in services, you can see a bit of a different story. You can see some developed members there, the US, Australia, UK, Japan, France, all quite doing well in terms of volumes of awards. And this is just looking at prime contractors, okay? So, you know, it's difficult to get a sense of the sub-consultants. And for example, you know, the top consultant in 2022, the top member country of providing consultants in 2022, India. You might wonder about that, but you know, one of the reasons, for example, not to provide any preference, but just to say that, you know, PwC, for example, wins a lot of contracts with ADB. They channel all those contracts through PwC India. So it's all of those are recorded as Indian won contracts. But of course, as you can imagine, PwC is a global firm. So, you know, sometimes our procurement statistics don't tell the whole story. They tell part of the story. And so I wouldn't let the lack of Canada on this list discourage you at all, okay? You can see some of the top suppliers by name here. They may be familiar names to you. For goods, you can see some of them there. For works, again, some of them you can see there. And of course, this will go up and down by year, because especially for works, the contracts are quite large and, oh goodness, where am I going? Quite large and lumpy. So, you know, Siemens might win a $100 million contract, and that might swing them from second rank to fourth rank, or this sort of thing, right? So these things can go up and down quite dramatically. For services, obviously, the contracts are very smaller. So you can sort of see that, you know, in the last couple of years, at least, who some of the big names were that were winning. Now, the relationship with Canada is such that we are a founding member of ADB, which enables companies in Canada to do business with ADB, because ADB is still an MDB that requires bidders to be of a member country. So we don't have universal eligibility in our procurement in most cases, which means you compete most of the time only against the other 60 firms of the other 67 members. You don't compete with the whole world. We have about a 5% shareholding in the bank, have contributed quite a bit in capital and co-financing, and have won, Canadian companies overall have won about 760 million of contracts since 1966, and about 17 million in 2022. You can see some of those winners summarized here. Northwest Hydraulics in Vancouver does quite well. Some of the other names may be familiar with you as well. We do also do a lot to individual consultants. So, you know, if you are just working for yourself, or you're just an individual, there are plenty of opportunities with ADB as well. And you can see quite a number of Canadians winning those opportunities with us. Goods and works, like I said, our procurement statistics suggest we don't do as well. Not much going on there in the last few years, but often do come in as subcontractors, or even third-tier contractors, for example, which is not captured in our procurement statistics. Okay, so this only captures awards to prime contractors. And while I certainly encourage you to be a prime if you think you can handle it, you know, this is not to discourage you otherwise, because again, there's still plenty of opportunity to contribute as a subcontractor, which Canadian companies are doing actively right now. If you'd like to see more about some of our operational procurement statistics, I leave this link here for you. You can access this website and dig into the stats in more detail at your leisure, by region, by type of procurement, etc. Okay. Talk a couple minutes now about our procurement policy before moving on to some of the more interesting website stuff. We currently still have 2 active procurement frameworks, but by and large, at this point, you're mainly looking at the one on the left, the blue one, the ADB procurement policy, which is governing all of the new stuff coming out onto the website, by and large. So that's the one really to read into and to focus on when it comes to the compliance side. You'll, you know, share that one with your legal team, because that's the sort of one that matters in 99% of the cases these days. Our procurement principles are, of course, your standard issue fairness, economy, efficiency, transparency, but also quality and value for money, which we added in that new policy in 2017. So those allow us, those new principles allow us to have a greater focus on use of evaluation criteria beyond just lowest evaluated bid, which is good for suppliers like yourselves who may not necessarily offer the lowest price in the region, but may have high quality, innovative solutions to offer nonetheless. Okay, so increasingly, you may have heard, for example, that the World Bank has mandated use of quality cost evaluation criteria in its procurement of works. We haven't done that yet in ADB. We may still do that in the future, but for now, what we're doing is in all of our templates, we are putting the quality cost evaluation criterion as default. And so if a borrower wants to only focus on price, they effectively have to do extra work by taking out the quality component. So this is incentivizing more of our borrowers to consider both quality and cost when setting their evaluation criteria. Okay. Now, I expect many of you on the call are consultants because this is generally who these events tend to attract. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But so we have a few extra slides just focused on consultancy. If you go for ADB opportunities, you'll notice that we have two different budget sources, what's called technical assistance and what's called, technical assistance, loan and grant budget, and then a separate type of budget called staff consultancy. It doesn't make much difference for you as the provider of services, except in terms of the system that you may use to submit your claims, because all staff consultancy is held within one system, and our technical assistance and other consultancy you have to claim through a different system. But otherwise, it's effectively similar. As I said, we don't have universal eligibility. So generally speaking, so again, if it's an international assignment, then any as advertised international, then it means any of our 68 member countries can bid. If it's national, then what we're looking for is a firm incorporated legally or an individual with the right to work in the targeted borrower state. Okay, so it doesn't mean you have to be a citizen, but it means you at least have to have the right to work. Or if you're a firm, you have to be incorporated. So if you have a sister or a daughter company, for example, incorporated in the target state, then you could bid through that entity instead of your Canadian entity, for example. Generally speaking, for consultancy, we advertise, we shortlist, then we do an RFP process, request for proposal, where anywhere between 2 to 8 firms generally will be invited to submit a detailed proposal, which is then evaluated, negotiated, and a contract is signed with the winning firm, the firm being awarded on the basis of quality and cost. Okay. I'll talk to you about an exception to that in a minute, but these are our main selection methods. They're effectively similar, except for the fact that they balance quality and cost and budget restrictions in different ways. Okay, and obviously direct contracting means no competition. It means we've pre-identified you particularly because of some special thing you bring, and we're just directly contracting with you, which is still the exception to the norm, but it does happen if there's a good business case for it. We also have this new pilot selection method, which I built and launched for the bank a couple of years ago, called SCQS. And this is a single stage method, a single envelope. So instead of doing both an EOI and a proposal stage, there is only a single advertisement proposal, short form proposal stage. So it speeds up the process quite significantly. It's for now just being used for smaller value selections where ADB is the one signing the contract. But just be aware that if you see one of these when you're bidding for ADB assignments, that it does take a different form. And the form, as you can sort of see in the schematic here, In the blue is it's a simpler process. It's just that single stage instead of your typical shortlisting plus RFP stage, as you can see there in the red, okay? And there's a video there you can watch if it's of more interest to you. Now, yeah, I think some tips, none of this is particular rocket science, but it's worth emphasizing nonetheless. As always, much like finding a new job, there's always a bit of a chicken and egg problem. If you don't have the experience, you can't get the projects. If you can't get the projects, you can't get the experience. But of course, there are ways for you to nonetheless build your way into the region or your way into winning ADB assignments. That doesn't necessarily require you to have worked with us before or even to have worked in the target country before, for example. Of course, the best way to start is networking. Come to events like this, come to our Business Opportunities Fair, which is generally held once a year in Manila. We had the last one last October in Manila, which was quite well attended. And the next one, we don't have a date yet. It will either be Q4 of this year or Q1 of 2025, so stay tuned for that. And of course, go to other ADB events, of which there are plenty, and try to meet ADB people at other forums. For example, ADB hosts an energy conference every year. We generally host a transport conference every year, every other year. There's usually a water conference, all these different types of conferences happening. And this is where, again, you can meet operations and project people who are doing the projects, who are helping our clients with their needs, and who can really give you the front line of the opportunities as they're coming, okay, and give you that business intelligence. And you can put faces to names, you can connect names to projects on our website, and then you know who to call if you have questions about upcoming projects, if you have ideas for engagement that might lead, for example, to a direct contract or to a partnership agreement or something like this. Of course, networking in any field is a good thing to do, and certainly is a good thing to do with ADB. Another good way in is, of course, to get regional experience and with other clients, if you can, get country experience with other clients, understand, the client requirements, do your research in advance. And of course, another good way in is to be on projects, not necessarily as a prime, but as a sub-consultant, or even just to have experts who are on relevant projects who you can add into your firm's team. So your firm itself might not get top score for relevant firm experience, but your experts might get top score for their own CV experience, right? So you can have success in different ways in that regard. And of course, if you wait until until the opportunity is already on the website and the RFP is already up, it's generally a bit too late, right? You need to do your business intelligence. You need to scout out what are called procurement plans and project documents to see, 6 months or a year in advance, the opportunities coming down the pipeline, so that you can start building your partnerships. You can start reaching out to firms to form a consortium. You can start looking for a team leader, all these kinds of things to get yourself ready for when the opportunity actually goes to tender, because then you usually only have 4 to 6 weeks to write your bid. You don't have much time at all, right? So you really have to be ready for when that starting gun goes off. You're already trained, you're ready to go, and you're ready to sprint to the finish line, right? Of course, things you shouldn't do. This is a public sector organization. We're subject to strict oversight by our board, by people like Edie Bobiash, and of course by, our anti-corruption office and everything else. So we are very strict on procedure. certainly don't hand me a brown envelope. That will not go down well. But of course, even simpler things like don't submit your proposal late. If you don't disclose a conflict of interest, or if you're not eligible, or if you submit a conditional bid, any of these things can get you disqualified, or can even get you completely sanctioned from doing business with us and with other MDBs for, years or even indefinitely if you really make a mess of things. So, I would strongly recommend that, of course, you familiarize yourself with our anti-corruption policy, with our procurement rules. You can talk to us always further. You can always ask questions. This is why I say at the bottom, when in doubt, ask questions, because you're better off to ask about something and get your answer than to just go for it, find out you were non-compliant, and then get in trouble later, right? And of course, if you have complaints, if you've seen something fishy going on, or you would like to report something, I've put the links here. And I always also recommend, if you bid for something but you weren't successful, ask us for a debriefing. If you were shortlisted as a firm and you were invited to submit a proposal, then you are entitled to a debriefing. If you weren't shortlisted, or if you're an individual consultant, you aren't entitled to a debriefing. A project officer might still be kind enough to offer you one, but they don't have to. But when it comes to firms that were shortlisted, they do have to. And those debriefings are often very helpful for you to understand where your proposal was weak and how you can improve yourself for future bids. And we find that often helps a lot in terms of, at first you don't succeed, try again. And, eventually firms will be able to make their break into ADB work, through feedback on successful proposals. Okay. So I'm going to jump now. I've got 10 minutes left. I left these slides here in case we'll see if my internet connection enables us to have a good demo of the website here. Bear with me a moment. Let me see if it will load up. And then I'm going to just show you a few screens from our adb.org website. You can follow along with me on your own browser if you'd like. Okay, here we go. Bear with me a minute here. So you should now be seeing adb.org. Can you confirm that, please?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, so it might be a bit laggy. Again, bear with me. But if you just go to adb.org, again, we win the Aid Transparency Award every year. We have, I think,
Oh, Julian, I'm not sure if you're paused or if I'm paused.
staff, funny enough, when we want to find something, usually we just Google search it and we find it on our external website. So actually our external website is often the best place, even for ADB staff, to find stuff we're looking for rather than trying to find it through our internal systems. But anyway, so the ADB website is very good. And you can find all sorts of stuff here, for example, about who our management is, our annual reports, how we work with civil society. I didn't ask if there were any NGOs on the call today, but we do often do a dedicated session like this for NGOs because there are a few different considerations. You can ask me about that later if there are any NGOs on the call today. We do work with NGOs quite actively. You can, under what we do, you can find a lot about our different sectors and thematic areas. So if you're interested, for example, in water, you can click on water and in we go. You can see, our latest projects, our latest blogs about water, where we're working on water, what impact we've had. You can sign up for a water team newsletter. You can see what's new. Okay, so you can search here by okay, you can also, there's these sub tabs here, right, of our different knowledge resources, our different project resources. So that's searching kind of by sector, by theme. Then you can also search by member state or by region. Okay, so let's say I'm very interested in Pakistan. So let's click on what's ADB doing in Pakistan. Let's take a look. And again, you can see everything to do with Pakistan here. You can see the, our different country reports and project documents. You can see some key facts of how we work together. You can see co-financing, approved and upcoming pipeline projects. Proposed would be, new projects coming online where there would be a lot more opportunities for you to bid for. You can see the location of our office in Pakistan because we have offices in almost all of our borrowing member states, small offices. But again, if you have contact or you have staff in Islamabad, for example, you could reach out to the country director there, ask for a meeting, see if they're willing to meet you, and they're here at the Serena complex, go say hi, right? I mean, obviously you can't just walk in there, but what I'm saying is, they are accessible. We're accessible in country, and of course you can try and get meetings in all of our different countries as you may be interested. And then finally, this is in my view, the most important part for finding new business. Work with us. Of course, if you'd like a job, you can start here, but we're not talking about jobs today. We're talking about procurement. So there's this whole section about, working with ADB for different target audiences. So if we say consultants, for example, if clicking this will bring you to a list of key resources and some frequently asked questions that consultants often ask us, which is a good place to get you started. It's the basics, right? It'll let you in some of the stuff we talk about in these seminars. But then the real kind of good stuff is under here, procurement. One thing you can do is, operational procurement. You can sort of see a summary of everything I've talked about basically here on our operational procurement page. We have a link to our complaints form, to our, our different work on goods and consultancy, a link to our consultant management system. Our procurement policy is here, contact information. But then the key one really, and also like all the seminars we do, you can see, all the former PowerPoint presentations here. There's me on stage back in 2019, but all of these PowerPoint presentations are under here. So, in a few weeks, this one will also be under here, under the archive. You will also receive it by email, of course, but you can also get to all of them here. And what's good is you can dig in here and find all of the old pipeline presentations from different sectors and thematic people. So you can see the pipelines coming up, beyond what we're able to discuss in the hour we have together today. But then, where the real money is in ADB is this projects and tenders page. Okay, this is where you can find basically everything to do with opportunities in ADB. So there's 3 tabs here: projects, documents, and tenders. Projects, again, is the package that ADB approves. Let's say, whatever, the bus rapid transit system in Indonesia we were talking about earlier, right? So that's the project. Inside the project, there will be what's called a procurement plan. And the procurement plan will set out all of the different packages or contracts that project needs. For example, bus, whatever, procurement of 500 buses, procurement of 50 traffic lights, procurement of construction supervision consultant, procurement of roads consultant or roads contractor to repave the bus lanes. These would all be packages within the project, okay? So on the projects page, what you can find is the basic overall project management plan, the project strategy. You can see the different statuses. You generally want to look at proposed and approved or active projects. If it's closed, it means it's done. But even active projects, you have to check when it was approved, because if it's a 5 or 6 year old project, generally speaking, most of the contracts will already be awarded, and the contractors will be busy building, finishing the work. So there won't necessarily be many opportunities left for you. But, newly approved projects, there will still be lots of opportunities. So you have to kind of go by approval year, bearing in mind that the average project lifespan is, 8 to 10 years. So don't be discouraged to look at projects from 2021 or 2020. There may still be some good opportunities in those projects, for example. Under documents, you can also search by, what I mentioned, for example, you can look for all the procurement plans over here by type, right? So if you can search on these filters, you can say, okay, I want to see all the procurement plans and I want to see them for Indonesia only. And then let's go apply. And then you'll see, okay, here's a new one, geothermal procurement plan. That sounds exciting. Maybe some of you are into geothermal. Let's see what this geothermal project is going to procure. And bear with me while the PDF loads. Sorry, I'm also live streaming this, so I think it's lagging. Okay, here we go. So you can see this is a big project. It's almost $500 million, 300 million from ADB. I didn't pre-plan this. I just clicked on the first thing I saw. So we're all seeing this fresh here. But this is quite an exciting one. There's $133 million open bidding for the power plant. That's happening this quarter, actually. Maybe VJ is going to talk about. I might be stealing your thunder, VJ. Sorry if I'm stealing your thunder here. And of course, there's a consulting package, and there's a few. If you're an auditor, there's going to be an auditor package. There's some, and there's already some that have been awarded for drilling, for mud engineering. Okay, so some of the contracts have been awarded already, but there's still some big ones left. So this is what a kind of procurement plan can give you an indication, the value, the general description of the package, the advertisement planned date. And from here, you can dig in more. You can start calling people. You can read the other project documents. You can get a sense. What do they mean by power plant? What is that going to look like? What kind of technology are they using? You can find that in the other project documents, right? And then you can decide, should we go for this? I mean, I would. 133 million is something to scoff at, right? So, this is just an example, but that's what you can find in these procurement plans. Lastly, tenders. This is, of course, where it goes live, where when the gun goes off and it's time for you to bid. You can find it all here. You can also find, contracts awarded. You can see who won, because sometimes you can do what's called a hop-on opportunity. So after a contract is already awarded, let's say to a big firm like Larsen and Tourbo, they win some big works contract in India, but they still need subcontractors. So even after they've won as a prime, they might still be able to give you what's called a hop-on opportunity as a subcontractor to deliver a particular piece of work under that contract. So you can identify those primes and those contracts awarded here on this page over here, and also through the filters here. You can see for consultancy, the shortlisted firms, for example. And then again, you can try and approach them and say, can I join your team at proposal stage, right? And see if you can get in that way. So there's lots of opportunities here for, everything from our consultancy system gets posted here, everything from our clients, the goods and works opportunities, where you would work directly with the government. They have to post all their opportunities here. So this is really the center of it all, the beating heart of our website. This page gets the most views on every page of our website each year. This is really where you have to look for the opportunities, okay? And if we had more time, of course, we could go through this in more detail, but this is at least, the place to start. I encourage you to play around here. There's lots of filters you can go by. And lastly, at the bottom, is some what's called subscriber services. You can sign up to get alerts when there's new procurement opportunities going up, okay? You can put your email in, you can sign up and say, yes, I want everything. I want the procurement notices in particular is an important one. Be sure to turn that one on, and that will help you, see these opportunities coming into your inbox on a daily basis, okay? So I'm going to wrap up because I'm out of my time. All of this is here as slides as well for you, for your reference in the slide deck. I just want to wrap up by thanking you for your time and saying I also moderate these 3 LinkedIn groups, the Consultants Network, the Suppliers Network, and the Business Center. There's several thousand individuals in these groups. So why don't you sign up? They're a good place to learn about ADB events, ADB opportunities. You can find like-minded people interested in going for ADB assignments. You can reach out to them, you can network, and they're another place, again, where you can start building your knowledge and your networks with ADB. Okay, so I saw a few questions in the chat. I don't know if we're going to do Q&A now or at the end, but I will certainly be happy to take those. And again, I thank you for your time and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you so much for all of that information. It was incredibly valuable, as noted in the chat. We will get to those questions during the Q&A portion, but I do want to hand it over to Vijay for his presentation on the Southeast Asia portfolio and the procurement opportunities within that envelope. So Vijay, over to you.
Thank you, Kyla, and welcome to all the participants. I am Vijay Akasam. I am in the front office of Southeast Regional Department. Julian actually talked about the overall ADB portfolio. So I am here now to tell you about the opportunities available in Southeast Asia and how the portfolio is doing, and where we would like the consultants' input and improvements in the quality which is required. Looking at third active portfolio, so we are at 26.8 billion. You can see here in these pie charts by country. We have 2 billion in Cambodia, 3.17 billion in Vietnam, 7.5 billion in Indonesia. Likewise in Laos and Philippines is our biggest portfolio, which is 10.2 billion. And if you see by sector, transport and energy are the biggest sectors in Southeast region where we finance, and also ANR is also another major sector. So these 3 pie charts in the first slide gives you the overall portfolio, which includes the projects and also the policy-based lending. Now in this second slide, these 2 pie charts will show you the projects, excluding the policy-based lending. So here also you can see by DMC and by sector. So we are having, in Cambodia, 2 billion active projects, and in Vietnam, 3.17 billion active projects. Indonesia, 5 billion active projects, and Philippines, 8 billion active projects. Similarly, if you look by sector, the agriculture and natural resources, we have 3.1 billion active portfolio, and in urban and water we have 2 billion, and so now this is very important. I want to let you know about the uncommitted amounts in the active projects. Uncommitted amounts in the sense they are all the opportunities for you to look into these projects. Whether you're a works contractors or goods contractor or consultant. So these are all the overall outstanding amounts to be committed, which means to be tendered. If we look at transport sector, we have 2.5 billion worth of money to be tendered. The packages to be tendered. As Julian explained you about the procurement plans. So if you go and look at the procurements of plans of those projects, you can find those packages. And you can, in the procurement plan, you can also see what is the likely date of invitation for bidding. So you can note down those dates, and then look for those advertisement. And also you can, if you sign up, the alerts will come to you. So it will be very handy to get registered and get the alerts. Then energy, also if you see, so we have 398 million worth of packages in energy sector, and in agriculture and natural resources, if you see, we have 1.1 billion worth of packages yet to be tendered. There could be some small packages and bigger size packages depending on the sector and depending on how the packaging has been done during the strategic procurement planning process. So how it happens is when the project is concept has been approved, and then when our DMCs start preparing the projects, of course, ADB will be providing the TA and recruiting the consultants to help the governments in preparing those projects, the feasibility reports, and also during the required due diligence. So during that time, a strategic procurement planning process will also be undertaken. So looking at the geographical constraints, the nature of the project, the complexities of the components within the project, and then how the packaging need to be done, looking at the risks, the market risks. Probably they will be interacting with you guys also, reaching out to the market to know what your interests are, and then coming out with a strategic procurement plan. So in that, there could be, as Julian explained, the varieties of packages will be there. It could be advertisement contracts. It could be turnkey projects. So you have seen one package of 133 million in Indonesia, and there could be even a package for 10 million or even less than 10 million, especially in the sectors like agriculture and natural resources or education sector. You can find the packages less than 10 million. Whereas in urban and water sectors, you can find more than 20 million, or in transport, you can even find around 100 million or more than 100 million packages. Even in energy, more than 100 million packages. So it all depends on nature and complexity and the context, and looking at all the project risks, the locational risks and the market risks. So these packages will be decided on. So you can you can see that there are huge opportunities. There is 6.3 billion uncommitted amounts are there in active portfolio of Southeast region. If you look at, apart from this, if you look at lending program, in 2024, these are our plans, pipeline, you can say the pipeline projects which are being processed now. Probably some of you as consultants are working on this TAs in helping the DMCs to prepare these projects. If you look at country-wise here, so energy Indonesia is 1.1 billion we are targeting this year. In transport, you can see Philippines 1.45 billion and Indonesia 265 million, and also Thailand 89 million. And urban and water, you can see in Indonesia 419 million, and Laos we are targeting 190 million lending this year. And agriculture and natural resources also, you can see Cambodia and Laos PDR. And if you see the health and social sectors, you can see Philippines, Thailand, even Laos. And you can see education in Cambodia. So we have a lot of commitments, planned for this year. And if you look at 2025, there is almost a plan for 10 billion commitments. So these are all projects under preparation, or the concept papers are under preparation. So you have opportunities in these preparations also through our technical assistance program. So if you register in our CMS, you will get notifications whenever the consultant's requirements are advertised there, and you can participate in those programs and help our DMCs in preparing quality projects. So roughly the areas where we have the pipeline. So in Cambodia, we have the rural water supply, the water resources management, education, and public sector management. So those are the areas we are targeting at. And in Indonesia, transport, the clean energy transition program, and sanitation sector, and also we also have the policy-based rending to reduce the marine debris, affordable and sustainable energy transition, promoting innovative financial inclusion, and state-owned enterprise reforms. Similarly, if you look at Laos, so we are planning for urban environment, health, agriculture, public sector management, water supply and sanitation, flood and drought mitigation. And in Philippines, so this is one of the flagship projects, the Malolos Clark. You might have heard about the Tranche 1 already, which is in progress. And now the Tranche 2 is also planned in 2024. It's a tranche financing facility. And interestingly, Philippines is also looking for a project development and monitoring facility where you have huge consulting opportunities also. So here, the government wants to invest in preparing quality projects and getting the projects ready with good quality at entry, ready to be implemented as soon as the financing is approved. So that's a very good advance action, by Philippines government. Already this kind of facility in the first phase they already utilized, and all these flagship projects, they were well prepared, and by the time the financing agreements were signed, they were ready to bid out. The packages are already bidded out for advance procurement actions. So they are also going for that. And then if you look at Thailand also, we are looking at medical excellence centers and climate resilience connectivity for Eastern Economic Corridor. And in Timor-Leste, we are looking at water harvesting and agricultural value chain projects. In Vietnam, climate resilient inclusive infrastructure for ethnic minorities. So these are all planned. I mean, these are all in, following the development agenda of our respective DMCs. And following our country partnership strategies. So you can find our country partnership strategies on the website. This year, 3 countries are due for renewal of the CPS for 2024 to 27. Now, in 2025 as well, so we have the similar targeted sectors. So you can look at in these presentations, which will be circulated to you. So these are all the sectors where we are looking in each of these countries. Now, when we look at the TA portfolio, our technical assistance portfolio, we have 49 active KSTAs and 61 TRTAs. So, I mean, moving forward, we are not going to have any differentiation between KSTA and TRTA. But of course, as of now, the TRTAs are mostly for project preparations. We call it transactional technical assistance, and the KSTAs are for the knowledge and support technical assistance. So we are 387.4 million of active technical assistance amount we are providing to all of our DMCs in Southeast region. Average age of these TAs are 2 years, and we still have out of this 387 million, we still have 138 million of uncontracted amount, which means a good opportunity for the consultants to bid upon. I mean, this approximately formulates 35.7% of our total TA in Southeast region. Now, in the business opportunities in Southeast, so Julian already explained you what kind of opportunities you can look into. So mainly, I'm just giving you an idea here in Southeast. We are looking for consulting services in project preparation, capacity substitution, mainly in implementation of the projects. Most of the DMCs have capacity constraints, and we look for capacity substitution. So you can find these opportunities from the project funding itself. So from among the project funding, earlier I said 6 billion uncommitted balance is there in Southeast region. So out of these 6.3 billion uncommitted funds, roughly 8 to 10% of that amount is for consulting services. Of course, these consulting services are recruited by our DMCs, by the executing and implementing agencies of our DMCs, through assistance from ADB. Of course, ADB is going to review those procurement actions. We have a system to review the bid evaluation reports, or if it is the civil works or goods packages, and provide no objection to the contract awards or the selections of our executing and implementing agencies. If it is consulting services, also we look at the technical evaluation. We review. We also review the combined evaluation, and also review the draft contract documents. So helping basically the DMCs to follow the ADB's procurement policies and principles. As Julian explained to you, 2017 procurement policy is our new procurement policy, and we follow. So in capacity building is another major area. We need help of consultants, mainly to build a capacity within the line ministries and our executing and implementing agencies. It could be through the training programs or the well-designed long-term sustainable capacity building measures, or the training programs, and also the on-the-job training programs. Especially when the project management consultants or the construction supervision consultants are working on the projects, then the technology transfer need to take place, and then the staff working in the EAs and IAs get benefited with those knowledge transfer. If we look at the civil works, so we have ad-measurement contracts, the design build contracts. If you look at energy, urban and water, you can find the majority of the design build contracts. And if you look at agricultural, natural resources, or education, or health, or some of the transport projects, you can say the ad-measurement contracts. So supply contracts as well are there. So now this particular side, I was of two minds when I was preparing this presentation, whether to keep this slide or not. But then, of course, Julian already mentioned to you that we got, too many awards for transparency. I would like to present a reality here. In Southeast region, of all the projects, in ADB, we do have a methodology to measure the performance of the projects. So we use 5 indicators for that: outputs, the contract awards, the disbursements, the financial management, and safeguards. So we have sub indicators out of these 5 major indicators, which actually tells us how the project is progressing towards meeting the outputs mentioned in our framework, and how exactly the safeguards are being complied with, our policies are complied with the safeguards, and how the efficient financial management systems are being implemented within those projects, and whether the contract awards and disbursements are in accordance with the planned progress. Because the S-curve, which has been designed at the start of the project before getting the project approved, whether that design remains same, and whether the progress in accordance with that S-curve. So that also will be strictly monitored. So by monitoring these 5 major indicators and some sub-indicators under them, we look at the overall performance of the project. So if you see this slide, 63 projects, which is 55% of the projects, are on track, fully adhering to the design realities. But 31% of the projects are for attention. That means we need to have a little bit closer look onto these projects, because they are not strictly adhering to the design realities. So the ground reality today is not equivalent to the design at the time of the financing approval. So they are not yet at risk. We don't call them at risk projects, but we need to pay a little bit more attention to these projects. And we also alert our executing and implementing agencies and our DMCs during our portfolio reviews, and then alert them on where required interventions can be made, so that those projects will not fall into a red category, at risk category, but they can fall into the green category. And 14% of projects are at risk. There are several reasons for this. Maybe a simple example I can give you is that the project duration at the time of design could be 5 years, but the ground realities might have changed. Maybe the alignments might have changed, or some minor changes in the project scope happened, or the safeguards, for example, the land acquisitions got delayed, or the resettlement process got delayed, or even the procurement got delayed because of the lack of capacity, or because of the poor performance of the contractors. The contracts are getting delayed and not getting completed in time. So there are several reasons why the project can get into at-risk stage. So we closely monitor these at-risk projects as well. And then even our EAs and IAs, they review these projects along with us during the portfolio reviews, and they do discuss with all the consultants and contractors working on that, and see how any issues there can be resolved and what interventions are required, and how to mitigate those risks. Because when we are preparing the projects, the risk matrices are prepared through thorough consultations and identifying all the risks through all the assessments we carry out. The ES, our DMCs carry out all the assessments. We also do our due diligence, and risks are identified and the mitigation measures are identified. But then if those mitigation measures are implemented, then those projects should not go into under risk. But if they are appearing under risk, means there are some new risks which have come up, and new mitigation measures need to be identified. So this is how we do the project performance ratings, and how we monitor the projects. Now, when you look at that 14% projects at risks, and when we little bit dig into deep, these are some of the major concerns we observe. So one is the quality of projects at entry. So here, we are all collectively responsible for this. Our DMC partners, and the consultants, we at the ADB staff. So we are all combinedly responsible to see that the quality is good at the entry, especially the quality of the projects at entry is in an acceptable limits. why I mention quality of projects at a entry is, uh, normally, maybe the DMCs might have their own political reasons, so they may have a rush in getting the projects approved. So maybe they may pressurize the consultants to come out with quick project design, then in a hurry, some omissions. It is possible that some omissions may happen, which might have overlooked in our due diligence as well. So these are the areas where we need to be prudent and see that the quality of projects are good at the entry, and during the implementation also, we need to ensure the quality. And the main, these three sub dots I mentioned here, because, you're all equal partners in development. So I would like to highlight this, that the quality of consultants is also a concern in Southeast region. This is one of the areas in many assessments we found. So we need quality consultants. So there is a huge opportunity for quality consultants. So we also have the quality aspect introduced in our evaluation criteria now in selection of contractors also. So we need to have quality selections, whether it is civil works or goods or consultants. And that is why the quality is also being given importance. And when the quality is introduced as one of the factors for evaluation, we hope to improve the quality selections. And of course, the contracts management, this is also one of the area where we see the weakness, and we need good consultants to come and work on this, help our DMCs on contracts management. In the 2017 procurement policy, which Julian mentioned, the contract management has been brought in as one of the oversight responsibilities of our project team leaders, as well as the responsibilities of the ES and IS, specifically mentioning about the contract management plans, to prepare the contract management plans and then review the compliance of these contract management plans quite frequently, so that right interventions at right time can be taken in the projects. So that's all from me to give you a brief about our Southeast region. Hope you got some insights out there. So please reach out to us if you have any questions. Thank you. Over to you, Kyle.
Thank you, Vijay. Now we will open the floor for questions. If you do have a question you want to answer live, please, or ask, sorry, live, please raise your hand. But I will start with the ones in the chat. So the first question is, hello, Julian. Is there an appetite in the priority sectors to receive training or technical missions to Canada to know more about the clean tech? Example, electric mobility, will that fit into the transport sector or energy? It's from Rose.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Certainly, I think ADB is frequently undertaking such technical missions to various places as part of capacity development efforts with our borrowing or developing member countries. Now, because of budget constraints, these missions tend to take place within the region. So for example, we bring people to Singapore, we bring people to Japan and these sort of thing, but there's certainly nothing stopping such a concept or proposal from going forward, bringing people to Canada, for example, to showcase Canadian technology. This could be something that comes out through a project as part of a, often this could be a part of a co-financing deal if the Canadian government would be co-financing a project, for example. or could come about because of a particularly unique Canadian innovation or site that would be very well relevant to the type of work that's going to be done in the project site in Asia, maybe through technology transfer or the like. So yeah, it's certainly possible. Obviously I can't make something like that happen, but co-financing partners and project team leaders can work together, in collaboration with the government clients and the consultant firms as well to make something like that happen collectively.
Perfect. Thank you. There was another question and we did answer it in the chat already. It was just asking, will a copy of the presentations be available after the webinar? It will. For folks who want to receive the materials, you have to complete the survey. So the survey link will either be sent to you or it will be shown up on the screen via QR code, but you will be able to get access to the information from today. The next question is from Nalini. So it's, hi, Julian. If we help inform a part of the project at the concept and preparation stage, does that disqualify us from bidding after approval due to conflict of interest? And then she has a follow-up question as well, which we will get to the other two. So I'll let you answer the first one first.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's probably a lot for you to read out, Kayla, and I think it was sent to everybody. Yes. So I can also just take all three of them in one. So let me do that. So on the conflict of interest question, it's a good question. The answer is the typical lawyer response, which is it depends. But generally speaking, the answer is it does not disqualify you, generally speaking, okay? Because we have provisions in our bidding documents that talk about this and envision this situation happening. Effectively, what the common situation is just that a feasibility consultant then bids, for example, for the detailed design or for example, downstream supervision and management work. The procedure is, if that happens and ADB or the borrower shortlists that firm for that downstream assignment, then generally what will happen is anything the firm prepared as part of the upstream assignment has to be disclosed to all the other competitors in the RFP process. So this is called the unfair competitive, or it's shouldn't be called the unfair competitive advantage provision. That's what we call it. But I mean, really it's the competitive advantage provision because we're leveling the playing field in theory by providing all the other competitors the same information that the firm competing holds, because all of those feasibility reports they prepared become ADB's property when they're delivered, and so we share them around, and so then all of the other firms in theory can read those, can understand the same and have access to the same data that the upstream firm had, and therefore level the playing field. Now, there are obviously exceptions. For example, if the upstream firm literally wrote the terms of reference for the downstream assignment, then they would be excluded. And there could be other possibilities as well where a conflict, actual or potential, may arise that's significant enough that the firm would need to be disqualified or made ineligible. We take those mostly on a case-by-case basis based on what's been declared. Of course, if you don't declare, that can be a sanctionable offense. So you always do need to declare, and then we would consider it internally. With respect to the second question on the award of direct contracts, so the rules for our procurement procedures are all public and available online. So there's no secrets to direct contracting in that regard. You can of course find them on our website. But basically, when it comes to ADB zone contracts ADB procures where it signs the contract. We have a provision in place where project teams can direct contract a firm up to $100,000 without extensive oversight from the procurement department. Likewise, project teams can direct contract an individual consultant up to 66 working days without extensive oversight from the procurement department. So effectively low value contracts that generally meet the other criteria for direct contracting, such as urgency or unforeseen urgency, such as natural continuation of previous work, such as compatibility with existing infrastructure. This sort of thing, if it fits those criteria and is of low value, can be done quite quickly and easily. If it's above that value, it's also possible, and as happens, I would say, with a decent degree of regularity. Then they have to, explain. The project team has to write formally to the procurement director, my boss, explain the whole situation, justify why they think a direct contract is worthwhile. And then we assess it on the basis of the procurement principles. And if the business case can be made against the procurement principles in a clean and transparent manner that stands up to audit scrutiny, then it will go ahead and can be approved. If not, then we tell them to go and tender. So, a similar process for when the contract is being procured through our borrowers. A little bit different. Obviously, the borrower then comes to us and explains why they think it's worthwhile and seeks our no objection to it. And we review and provide our comments or the no objection to the borrower on that basis, and then the borrower goes ahead with its procedures to engage in the direct contracting exercise. And then the last question on trust funds: is funding from Canadian trust funds restricted or preferred to Canadians? This is actually not an area I'm very familiar with, but actually Edie Bobiash may be best to answer that question. But I think generally, I think it will depend on what the arrangements are for that particular trust fund. Some trust funds do have some preferences, but I think generally speaking, ADB, when it does co-financing deals and sets up trust funds, really pushes these donors to ensure that our open bidding and international eligibility remain, because otherwise we just get into a situation of tied aid, and ADB doesn't support tied aid, generally speaking. So, I can't give a definitive answer on that. Maybe Edie or Kayla can, but I would just say in general, we prefer everything to be, eligible to all 68 of our member countries.
So Canada has a fairly stringent tied aid policy. So I have not seen it done in particular. I don't know if Edie Bobiash has, but Canada generally has a policy of not tying our aid. We don't do it bilaterally, and I don't think we do it multilaterally as well. There is another question. So, hi, Julian. In one of the slides, it says that SCQS modality, USD 500K, is piloted until December 2024. Could you clarify what this refers to? Does it mean that after December 2024, opportunities bigger than 500,000 USD can be procured under the SCQS modality?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So at the moment, the SCQS selection method pilot is ongoing until at least December 2024. We don't envision dramatic change after that point. Actually, the more dramatic change we envision is to our consultant management system itself. You can be among the first to learn that earlier today, internally, we approved our business case to replace CMS with a new system. So the money has now been approved for that, and in the next few years, we will be working on doing that. So you, the consultants, can expect to see a new system replacing CMS well, we hope by 2025 for an initial release, or 2026 thereabouts. So this is something that's been confirmed now, and with that new system will come a number of quite dramatic changes in our business processes and policy and guidance for how we procure consultants, given the efficiencies that a new system will provide us. So we actually envision quite some broader changes to our selection methods that we're hoping to develop into policy to go along with the launch of the new system. But in any case, if for whatever reason none of that ends up happening, then there's a possibility, if the SCQS pilot is regularized, that the value threshold would go up. But I can't comment at this point because that will be a management decision to be taken at the end of the pilot period. Thanks.
Thanks, Julian. I'll direct this question to Vijay. Do you know, will the ADB publish the country operations business plans again?
Yeah. If you look at CPS, you will know the trend. I mean, CPS are all published, but COBPs, Julian, maybe are you aware of? Are they published? No,
Yeah, I can jump in on that because I've had this question in these seminars before. The COBP, Country Operations Business Plan, was a document that ADB used to publish on its website, along with its country partnership strategies. It provided essentially a list for the year ahead of which projects were going forward. That document no longer exists. Instead of that document, essentially we have better information on our website now about proposed projects, updated more frequently. So nothing has been lost. It's just basically been repurposed into information on the website rather than a separate document to look at and download.
Thanks, Julian. I will just quickly ask if anyone has a question they want to ask live. Now would be the time to raise your virtual hand. Oh, we do have one more in the chat as well. So the question in the chat is, can any shortlisted firm for ADB funded projects implemented through government has not intended further opening of financial proposal? What can consultants expect for this kind of situation? Can consultants approach directly the ADB? I don't know.
Okay. I think I can answer that. I think what he's asking is if you've bid for, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but if your firm has been shortlisted, but scored below the technical score threshold, why and what and how, basically. So yeah, in our consultancy processes, after you've been shortlisted and you're invited to submit a proposal, if it's a quality and cost-based selection process, which most of them are, then what happens is you give us two envelopes, virtual envelopes, right? Your technical proposal and your financial proposal. So then what happens is the technical proposal is opened first, and the evaluation committee, either ADBs or, as per the question, the governments, evaluates the technical proposals, decides on scores, and generally in the RFP there will have stated a cutoff of a minimum score, whereupon if you haven't met that minimum score, you don't proceed further in the process. Generally, this is 750 out of 1,000 points. So if your proposal was scored below 750 points, then the government, in this case, would not open your financial proposal. It would simply be, well, deleted from the system if it's electronic, or returned to you if it was on paper, because you were deemed not technically qualified. So that is the standard part of the process. There's no need to approach ADB. I mean, unless you think there was something fraudulent or collusive going on. I mean, if you were just got a low technical score, chances are it's because your proposal wasn't very good. And you know, if you think otherwise, then of course you should ask for a debriefing, because you're entitled to a debriefing to find out why they thought your proposal wasn't very good. And you can often learn a lot from those debriefings in terms of how to improve your proposals in the future, so that you can, you know, get better technical scores. So that's what I would say. I mean, this is, yeah, there's nothing sort of untoward about that situation. It happens in every selection process, right? Anyone who scores below 750 or whatever the threshold is won't be having their financial proposal opened. If you score above, then it will be opened, and then of course your price helps determine your final score and your final ranking. Okay, but of course ADB is always there as an option for complaints when it comes to borrowers, when it comes to procurements by our borrowers. If you do feel you've been mistreated, we do have a complaints procedure in place, which is again available on our website. You can submit through the form on our website. And usually what will happen is ADB will first ask the government to try and fix the situation. And if it feels the government can't do so, or if it otherwise thinks that the situation warrants ADB's own intervention, then of course we will intervene to the extent we feel necessary.
Thanks, Julian. So I'm going to provide one last opportunity to ask a question. You had failed to go in line with procurement plan. So, Mr. Dinesh, I would suggest then perhaps going through the ADB's website and seeing what recourse mechanisms would be available to you. And if you'd like, Lena and I would be happy to talk to you offline on some of the supports that we can provide in the TCS as well. So if there's no other questions, with that, I would like to thank Dr. Bobiash, Vijay, Julian. Thank you so much for your time this evening. I would also like to thank everyone who attended and joined us this evening. Please be sure to complete the post-event survey, at your leisure. I think the team will be flashing it on the screen in a moment. I also want to thank our partners at the Canada ASEAN Business Council. They are a leading voice here in the Indo-Pacific, and quite a good partner of the Trade Commissioner Service. For those of you that don't know, we are kicking off, well, we have kicked off 75 years of bilateral relations between Canada and the Philippines, and this is just one of many events that are happening under that umbrella. So thank you all for joining. I will ask that the QR code be kind of shown instead of my face, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks all. It was helpful. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Good night and good morning.
you.